Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TLDM, the podcast. My name is Tyler Samples.
And my name is Alan Linick.
Together, we're taking you into a bright future of RPG role-playing.
Yeah. Yep, that's for damn sure.
And the DMing side of it, because that's what we are, two DMs. But don't worry, we don't stop there. We also play in what? Each other's games.
Crazy. And where are those games set?
In the world of D&D.
Yes, specifically the same world of
One
D&D.
single world, a shared homebrew game. Though we've been known to branch out into other worlds via Adventurers League and other gaming systems.
That is true. Adventurers League. What a fun
experiment.
Experiment is a good way to put it.
Yeah. I have not been in like a month.
I have been consistently going to this Wednesday one.
Yeah, once my Wednesdays become free, I will join you.
I just like it. It's like most things. You find a decent, you find a group and you stick with the group.
Yeah.
The other one I tried out was you show up and there's 70 people there, and then they call your names and assign you randomly to tables.
Yeah.
And I don't think I like that very much.
Yeah, I meant to go to that style. I meant to go to that one on Monday, and then I was like, no, I got to do work instead.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd still like to check it out at some point.
It just felt like I was playing solitaire with five other guys also playing solitaire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this was probably better served for our last episode where we talked about Session Zero stuff. But I always feel like with Adventurers League, there should be a mandatory 5-minute Session Zero each game where you just talk through what you guys want to do, even just that session of or how you guys know each other, whatever. I understand that it bends reality a little bit.
Yeah.
But it'd just be nice to agree on a few
to
things.
Feel something.
Yeah, and agree on you're my best friend. And to be cool, we know that. That's great. Just to help encourage roleplay. Anywho, we don't have any recaps because, surprise, we still just finished play 2 days ago.
That's right. N-1/X days ago, or whatever the formula was.
Yeah.
We decided we had a little more we wanted to talk about from our last episode. So we thought we would do a little bonus.
Bono.
Welcome to the Pro Bono episode. I think this is our second bonus episode.
Yeah.
Something like that.
If you consider the fact that we aren't obligated to do any of these, they're all bonus episodes.
Yeah, that's a pretty narcissistic way to approach it, I think.
And a pretty rude way. Yeah.
We don't have to do these, but we're doing them for you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Alan, what are we talking about today?
Well, I wanted, we kind of sort of dabbled around talking about it in our previous episode, but I wanted to kind of hit this idea of what the DM's role at the table is, or what the DM player dynamic is.
And what's bringing this up? I mean, obviously that's the kind of the core of every single episode we're ever talking about, but I concur that it's the angle we're approaching it today is a little more specific and interesting, but just let's peel back the layers.
Yeah.
Let's get inside that Linux login.
Yeah, the login.
Yeah.
You want my login?
Yeah, I do.
It's password protected.
Okay. I use LastPass, so I wouldn't know.
Oh, gotcha. I just keep it all on a sticky note in my wallet.
Oh, nice.
And I change it. I do that thing that they tell you to do online where they're pick a 3-word phrase that's random words, and then you put it on a sticky note, and then every 3 months or 6 months or whatever, you change it and you throw the old sticky note away and you put a new sticky note in there.
What about when you have to use your old password to change to the new password and you've already thrown your sticky note away?
Yeah, well, my ordering could use some work.
Sure.
But I get there.
All right.
And then there's always one thing that, my fucking Kickstarter account or whatever that I didn't remember to update when I go through and update them all. And then 8 months later, I go to help somebody with their Kickstarter or try to invest in a product that I'm damn, I need this. And it asks me for my password. And I'm damn, dude, that's 4 passwords ago. I got no idea.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I use a modular password. Same beginning, same end. The middle part is different every time.
Oh.
So I only ever have to remember one thing.
You know what'd be interesting is to make a modular password like that, but the middle part is just whatever you're logging into.
Yeah.
So if it's Netflix, the center of it is
Figured
Netflix.
out my password.
Did I really?
Yeah, that's what I do.
That's what you do?
Yeah.
Well, great minds stumble
Yeah.
over the same thing,
Yeah.
I guess.
Also, like, go ahead and try to hack my information, y'all. I'm already part of Equifax. So I don't
my
care.
shit is all over other countries. As are all of us, which is why I think hopefully in like the next 5 years, credit scores will become a meaningless way to track someone's ability to pay debts or like be a reasonable like loan person.
Yeah.
Because man, oh man, it's just so easy to fuck up someone's whole life once you get a hold of like a scrap of information about them.
You're telling me. I thought my credit score was terrible, and because I thought I had checked it. Then recently I checked it, and it turned out I have amazing credit,
Do you?
which was a shock to me because I've been like, oh, I can't get, like, when I went to go buy a car a couple years ago, I was like, I better buy used. I'm not going to be able to get a car loan because I have such bad credit.
Oh, who needs a new car anyway?
And I didn't. I never want a new car.
Yeah.
I always
As soon
want
as
a
you
used car.
buy a new car, it's used.
Yeah.
Like so.
So
what the
always,
fuck?
but I thought you couldn't even get like a nice used car. 'Cause
Oh, I see.
I bought it with cash because I was
Right.
like, my credit score is so bad. Turns
Bought it
out,
with cash. What are you, a drug dealer?
I wish. That's what I say on any recorded medium that the FBI has access to.
Yeah, which is everything you own in your house.
Yeah. So with all of those modern life digressions put to the side, Alan,
I wanted to talk about the DM to player relationship because I see, I feel like topics that I see come up on Reddit and on Twitter and on other like various platforms involve questions like, you know, or situations where people are like, yeah, I think my DM is trying to kill us specifically, or like my DM, you know, I'm DMing a game and I accidentally, you know, I let my player try a homebrew like class or gave them like a magic item that I made and it ended up being too powerful and now I don't know what to do
right?
because they're like ruining my encounters, right? Or as we talked about in the previous episode, this idea of like I'm presenting the characters with a mystery, and I'm like now I'm like, well, I want to give them clues that are good, but I don't want to like blow the door off this mystery right away. And I think there's a key element there of like the game is set up to kind of push you to believe that you are not playing when you're
Right.
DMing. That there's not only a screen, but perhaps like a wall, like a more literal wall between you and the player characters.
Yeah, like you're supposed to be kind of like the Chinese room,
Yeah.
if you know that.
Yeah. And I think there are other mindsets to approach that are perhaps more healthy or useful than those.
I was just remembering when we went to that, you and I went to an Adventures League game, and you and I had the same reaction when the DM was like, when I was like, I'm a Aasimar, and he was like, and I was like, I'm an Aasimar, but I think I don't know it. I don't realize I'm one. I think I'm human. And he was like, you definitely know you're one. And I was like, no, I don't mean mechanically. Mechanically, I know I am one. As a player, I know I am, but like the character doesn't realize it. But it won't. Like I'll still play everything the same. He was like, no, he knows, and it was like, why? Who?
Oh, it bothered me so bad.
Yeah, it was very weird.
Yeah,
it was like, towards what end are you doing this? And he was like, because you're like 7 feet tall and like unworldly pretty. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't mean he knows that he's
like a celestial
being.
It
just means he knows he's a weird looking human.
Yeah.
Like that's
why why
self-perception doesn't work like that. Like somebody else telling you like no, it was like very weird. It felt very much like if I had been like it just felt very weird, like I'm not allowed to say things about women or things about people like about like transgenders and stuff, but one thing I still have authority to like shut down completely of my own
this
is
person thinking they're an Aasimar when they're not, or
like
whatever.
People against other races.
Yeah.
So,
but I think weirdly enough, I do think that the books as written kind of accidentally steer DMs in that direction.
Yeah.
Where they're like, you run the monsters, you create the whatever, and the players play that stuff, and then you react to the players. But I think it's more interesting and useful to like consider yourself a player in the room and like root for the players. Like, why? What? Like, why not? You know, obviously they're not going to have fun if it's not like challenging / interesting, whatever that means to the table, because those are subjective terms. But I think running it as, you know, they're playing and I'm just a referee is like, or whatever, or they're playing and they're playing against me, or I own the world and they inhabit the world. I think these are potentially unhealthy ways to separate DMing from playing. And like even the terms, right? Like you play or you DM,
right.
I think is a weird way to break down.
You run the game or you play it.
Yeah, everyone's playing the game.
Right.
And something I've been thinking about a lot lately is like what I consider myself, or like what I find my status to be when I'm running.
Yeah.
And because I'm fortunate enough to get to do both. So comparing and contrasting is something we do a lot on the show,
right?
Is comparing and contrasting what experiences feel like from one side of the screen or another. But I don't know. I'm just curious. I wish I had like, you know, a diagnosis or a cure or whatever. But mostly just want to kind of like talk about it because I don't know what. Obviously, there's no proper mindset. I don't think
right.
There's no way to do it. But I do think a lot of the issues, when people do have issues, a lot of the issues I see seem to arise from a space of like there being this impenetrable or uncrossable line.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're talking, I almost wonder if like a simple thing that might be useful if you find yourself in this stuck on one side of this line is instead of like, you know, when you're as a DM presenting stuff and you're like, you know, you walk into the room and there is, you know, a giant with a club standing in front of the doorway. What do you do? If it is helpful at all to change things around a little bit and be like, in the room, there is a giant with a club. What do we do? And even just like putting it in the phrase of like, how are we going to get out of this one? And like that you're introducing elements of a thing, but like, because one of the things that I find fun sometimes as a DM is getting to like discuss ideas with the group of be like, of like brain helping, like, participating in the brainstorming of like, well, what if we did this? And then being like, yeah, I don't know, but like there is this other thing we need to consider, and like that is your role. It doesn't quite work because you have a lot more information.
Yeah.
But like I think there can be a way to present situations where you're effectively giving everybody all the information. And what you've instead done is, and we've talked about this before, of like, if you're making puzzles with an answer, then like obviously it's a certain thing. But if you're making puzzles without an answer and you're like, yeah, I don't know either, like I don't know what's going to happen. We had the one a long time ago where it was like a room of drawings and it was like, how do we get into this safe? And you said that you didn't have a solution to it. So then at that point, it's like, yeah, I guess like, what could we do? Like, how could we fix this? I kind of made like, I'm God and I made a rock so heavy I couldn't pick it up. So like, how do we pick it up?
Yeah.
And just sort of like letting yourself, I don't know how much I agree with that, but I do agree with the idea of like letting yourself consider yourself part of the party in terms of like where your focus is. Like your cameras should always be over their left shoulder also, not like a top-down map. Like you should always be seeing from theirs. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think like, you know, obviously you want to create you want that magic moment where like everybody's in it, right? Like
Right.
where, and not necessarily meaning that they're, it doesn't have to be like happy either, right? You know, like, damn, if I created a situation where people like cried at my table or something,
It's the best.
that'd be, it would be great.
Yeah.
But to consider yourself like on the same team is an interesting way to go about it, where like, you know, yeah, I made, you know, I'm there's, you know, there's a Remmer has here now, and it's trying to eat you, but like I want you to win.
Yeah.
Like
I can't keep playing when you're all dead.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Like
so
I want you to win. I'm not like trying to fuck you over. And I think that ties into, we did an episode on traps
Yeah.
and how unfun sort of more conventional traps can be, where it's like, hope your passive perception is high enough or you're about to fall into a pit on a bed of rusty nails.
Mhm.
Like that just, because that just feels like a middle finger
Right.
from the person who's got the whole world in their head
Right.
and is feeding it to you bits at a time. And that doesn't feel good to be like, well, why didn't fucking my character Garrock see that there's a wobbly tile at you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it feels
considering
bad.
Garrock is a tile maker and does mosaics, he would have obviously paid attention to that.
Yeah, but Garrock would have known he was a tile maker. You can't be a tile maker and not know it because he's got his big hands.
No,
And he's-
Garrock didn't know.
No, he knows because you can't not
he
know.
thinks he's a mosaic maker.
He's not a
He
mosaic
doesn't think
maker.
in terms of tiles.
He's a
He thinks
tile
in-
maker.
No, but he creates mosaics.
He
with-
would know.
oh,
He would know.
I'm leaving again. Yeah, it's an interesting thing. Yeah, and also realizing like the other problem with like traps and anything like that. Anytime, no, I would go so far as to venture 90. I'm going to say 96.5% of the time, the DM has not given the players as much information. It has not framed any instance or encounter the way that they are envisioning it.
Yes,
That,
I
like-
think that's universally true.
Almost all of the time, the players aren't seeing and experiencing what you are because you can't convey everything that you've imagined because it would be exhausting.
You would never get out the first door.
Yeah, so you have to. So like that's the problem with like the Gary Gygax model, like the old school model of like Tomb of Horrors and stuff. Is like, yeah, where it's like death trap stuff is like you have to be very specific in terms of describing everything, or very on rails in terms of like the limits of what's allowed in a way that doesn't feel true to what D&D currently is, which is like it's infinite and you can do anything. You can dig under the floors and stuff, but you can only dig under the floors if you know that they're dirt floors, or that you like, or you can dig under the floors unless you specifically tell me that they're stone floors. And if I say, well, I dig under the floors, and you say, well, they're like hard stone, it'd be like, well, you didn't like, at that point, it's almost like, well, you didn't say that before. So like, why am I wrong for having made that choice? And like, so I think like there needs to, DMs need to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of understanding like,
Yeah.
oh, you made that choice because I didn't describe something as clearly as I could have.
And I usually end up apologizing for stuff like that
Yeah.
because I consider that a failure of mine. Like
Yeah.
if I present a challenge and a player does something that makes me be like, what? Like
Yeah.
what a weird or backwards or feels like an incorrect approach to this
Yeah.
situation. I don't do I don't do the thing where you're like, okay, well you walk up to the Hydra and it eats you and you're dead.
Right.
I do the thing of like, just to be clear, and my apologies if I like didn't explain this clearly enough. You understand that this thing is like 90 feet tall, right? And
Yeah.
then usually they go, oh wow, that is not what I pictured at all.
Right.
And then I go, that's on me because
Right.
it is.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the other way you can do it, even like a little more passively, than like, just to be clear, is like, if you're really struggling with it, and it seems important, is also to be like, Okay, so I'm gonna like draw back a little bit just to be like if it's really super confusing, you can be like, okay, I'm gonna draw back. What's your like
What's your
desired?
intention?
What's your
Yeah.
intention? What's your what outcome are you looking for with that? Because then you can be like, oh, it's 90 feet tall. That actually wouldn't be possible, and you would know that.
Right.
But so and then you can like I think again, it's kind of incumbent on the DM to sort of brainstorm like, cool, but like you might be able to achieve that by doing this of like, yeah, you're not going to be able to climb this gigantic ooze because it's an ooze.
Right.
Sorry, and I didn't describe that it was
Like
an
what
ooze
that means.
and what that means. But you could climb the wall next to it. You could try to climb the wall next to it, and then maybe you could get up there. And doing stuff like that, and even in the case of like, I want to dig through of like, oh no, it's a stone floor, but you could chip at it, and you might be able to like break part of it, and like present a thing, and then if they're like, well, I'll do that, then you're like, yeah, now you have a shard of the floor. That might be cool. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I'll try to make that narratively important later. Yeah, it feels like DMs need to always err on the side of like, not necessarily apologizing in that dynamic, but like of like admitting the limitations that admitting that they are the stopgap and like the bottleneck on information at every given moment.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and rewarding, if your players are asking you about details, I almost always err on or like go towards the direction of like giving them the thing.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh yeah, is there a torch? I'm like, yeah, sure, because you wouldn't be asking if you didn't have
An idea.
first of all, if you didn't already see it in your mind's eye.
Right.
In which case, if I say no, it feels like I'm taking it away from you.
Right.
And then secondly, if you didn't have something that you were like, I know exactly what my character would do in this situation. I'd grab a torch and I'd light it and like stick it in the thing's mouth because we remember from the last time we fought them that they hate fire. And I think that's a cool, smart thing that I would do.
Yeah.
And then, so if I'm like, no, there's no torch. Then it's like, well, fuck. I've just ground everything to a halt. I've effectively taken the like piece of paper of imagination for my player and like erased the thing that they've asked me about that I didn't clarify to begin with. So why does it matter? And then like now I'm forcing them down to like do something different.
Right.
And that feels obstruction.
Right. And then obviously the thing is like, unless it's important.
Right.
Because unless it's like, no, in fact, it's pitch black and there's no access to light anywhere around. Like, what do you do? Like, how are we going to resolve this? And being excited about that and making it very clear of like, I'm not doing this just because, but like, I'm curious about this. I think you guys can do it. And similarly, also, I think when we talked about puzzles of like, make sure that you can at least envision a way that people can get out of any situation.
Mm-hmm.
So that, because if you can't, then it's like, well, screw you. And it's also like, don't envision the way they do it is through dying and like realizing that the next time they play, they will make the right choice. Like, don't make the choice be meta knowledge.
Right.
Which is something we talked about last time we recorded that I actually wanted to say then that I realize now. We were talking about like doppelgangers. We were talking about when giving out clues and like doppelgangers being like evil. So like it would the lie would be, they can't be praying to like a life god because they're sort of inherently evil, as it was just like a made up example. And then I realized the thing that we should say is like, but also when constructing puzzles or situations or encounters and stuff, if it is based in like something in the books that is true of like a character, like, it breathes fire, you have to make sure that your characters know that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're constructing something towards your knowledge base.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't know, if the characters and the players, if the characters would know it but the players don't, you have to tell the players.
Yeah.
And you have to find a way to do that that's fun, which is what sucks. Because like, you don't get to just be like, well, doppelgangers can't worship good gods. Anyway, so back to this clue I had about this
right.
guy.
It does basically all boil down to mindset, though. And I think a lot of that comes from, like, that, again, all this onus is kind of put on the DM side of, like, you are the world and you are the monsters. And then you get it, it's easy to fall into this trap of a mindset where you're like, well, they're not doing my thing right. And it's like, it's not yours. It's everybody's, you know what I mean? So, like, considering yourself, again, just trying to consider yourself on the same team as the players in the room, and you're building something together, is a different mindset than, like, I built this thing and now I get to see if they're smart enough to, like, beat my thing, or, like, I'm running this monster and I don't want them to use their stupid whatever MacGuffin item that I accidentally gave them 3 sessions ago, so I'm going to break it or have it stolen because it'll ruin my encounter. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of, like, almost like aggressive. It's the kid on the playground that no one wanted to play with because they always had force fields and they were unkillable, and they had, like, you were clearly set in as knights or whatever, but they had laser guns or whatever, and you're like, well, you don't get to just.
Yeah, and it's part of. I mean, a thing that I think is really interesting also is seeing how, taking a step back, like how D&D and other RPGs, but specifically D&D because it's the biggest, it's the granddaddy, has really shifted over the years. We've talked about this with James and stuff before, of, like, the D&D initially was a war game, and that's, like, what it was, and it kind of followed that. And the role-playing stuff was just stuff that kind of just happened, and then the role-playing got baked in. And at this point, smartly on the part of, like, intelligently on the part of Wizards of the Coast, I think that they treat D&D more as, you get to play these characters in this world where you can do all of this cool stuff, instead of, like, you get to fight stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're really, even though all of the rules still do that, the marketing and everything about it, and all new players coming in, a lot of them are more excited about, I get to be a thing who has, like, I get to be a hero. Right, and not just, like, I get to fight, but, like, I get to be a hard swilling, like, dwarven warrior coming in to fight to save the day, because all dwarves are from the Isles.
Yeah, they're all all of the races are, because they're all Tolkien. Bullshits. Yeah.
Not in my game.
Me neither, bro.
And not in Tomb of Annihilation.
Good.
It's explicitly set in, like, an African style culture, which I think is very cool.
Yeah.
Like, I think is super cool.
It needs it. Yeah. Because I think we mentally default to the Tolkien style, like, everyone's a subgenre of British.
Right. Which is dumb.
Or Britannia, I should say. And it is just like, man, we are really limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
For no reason.
For no reason at all.
Other than one guy did it when he wrote some fucking books.
Yeah.
You like Tolkien? Come at me, bro.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Alan Linnick, there are 2 enemies he has, Matt Colville and
J.R.R. Tolkien. You know why Tolkien's dead? Because I put him in the ground.
Yeah, dude.
I didn't, though. I really like The Hobbit. I thought The Lord of the Rings was just so unnecessarily long.
It was super long.
Those books are just... And that whole Tom Bombadil section, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And why do we care?
It's really annoying to me. It's like...
And nothing comes of it narratively.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't happen.
Oh, what a nightmare.
Yeah.
I didn't even read the Silmarillion. I mean, no slight Why to people. I know people, like, love that, and, like, I think that's super cool.
It's like reading, like, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, that book. It's like, put that universe to rest, kids. Come on. Like, she ended it for a reason.
Poorly. That epilogue, holy shit.
Bad epilogue.
And I'm not even talking about the movies. It's bad in the books.
Yeah, the end of Harry Potter.
Oh, so bad.
Terrible.
He's an Auror. Come on. Why? He did it. He done.
Yeah, and
what a boring, ordinary life I don't want to see his boring, ordinary adult life.
No, especially also, it's completely unbelievable. It's like, nah, he would have, like, branded deals. Like, he's the most famous wizard of all time.
He's either a hermit or he's, like, the Michael Jordan of the wizarding world.
Like,
what? He's kissing his kids goodbye on the train. What?
Yeah. He, like, at worst, he's like a Macaulay Culkin, like, where everybody instantly recognizes him and
they're like, man,
he's
remember
kind
when
of a
he
fuck
killed
up.
Voldemort, but he hasn't done anything for 20 years? Yeah. Fuck. So irritating.
So
And
irritating.
he names his kids like fucking boring ass fan service names.
Yeah.
Oh, Rowling, you're better than that.
She is.
Man, you're so much better than that.
She's doing a great job of like tackling the current political climate.
She's killing it. And I love those books. This should not at all be interpreted as a slight against Harry Potter, the series.
Nor as a change in format for our podcast. We're not becoming literary critics.
Yeah, no.
And I think I didn't finish my thought, but I truly can't remember where I was going with it other than, what were we even talking about?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was the most TLDM.
It was Tolkien elves and like whitewashing your campaigns.
We all want to play characters. Because D&D has changed.
Oh, right. You were doing a dwarf impression.
I did a dwarf impression to say D&D has changed. I was interested in how D&D's changed because I took a step back from everything. This must be engrossing for the people who've listened and paid attention.
If they're still listening, because once I started, if I throw a jab at Tolkien, I know that's like 50 listeners are gone right away.
Just poof away.
I liked them.
Yeah.
I'm treating them like pure gold. I don't get it.
Yeah, I actually did remember, and I'll finish it, which is this. D&D has changed a lot in its focus, and so I think that with DMing, one thing is like, it's not a game anymore. It's a narrative. And I think we've talked about that before. And like, you can play it like a game. That's what Adventures League is, more or less, in terms of how a lot of people approach it, like a video game. But it's like, there's no game over sign, and there's no like, you don't beat people. And so also as a result, you can't lose. Like, it's like you're not trying to avoid losing. It's just losing is, you don't win or lose. All it is you encounter different wrinkles.
Right.
Winning should have as much consequence as losing does. And both are just consequences, which is true for the DM and for the players. So like, if you're trying to beat your players,
well, then you win. Like, there's no universe in which you don't win that fight.
Right.
Because you just sit down at the table and you say, you're dead. And they're dead. There's like nothing they can do about it.
And they're done. Yeah. So like, you're playing, you're not playing to lose. You're playing to see what consequences you can introduce. And death is the least interesting consequence. And like,
unless it's like a powerful death that has like an impact on the party, and like they can look back on it and be like, we could have done that differently, or something.
But even still, that needs to be super telegraphed, or preventable. But like give them chances to try to stop it, like we had with Rake's death. There was a lot of time where it wasn't like a one punch and she was gone. It was like, this is a situation, let's see if we can get out of it or not. And that was one where I actively was like, I'm not even trying to kill Rake. I'm just like presenting new consequences and seeing what the results are of them. It ended in a death, but I wasn't trying to kill anybody, and I wasn't trying to like beat you guys. I was like, I wasn't.
No, I know you weren't.
And I think that's just like a change in the game, that especially for like, when players are finding other players like through the online stuff like Discord, or I want to call it Shine On, and I know that's not the name.
Roll20?
Roll20.
Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah. When you're finding that, you know,
on Shine On.
Yeah, you find people with different experiences and different things. And again, that's why like it's useful to have a session 0 to talk about stuff. But I realize like it is very different than a lot of old players are used to playing D&D. But I think for me, playing it like it's a narrative, like it's a story you're all telling, with mechanics to make it easier to understand how to forward that story, is the most satisfying way to play it, because then you have stakes and you get to care and you get to do cool things that's not ultimately just math. Right.
And I think that's really where the question comes down to, is like, if you're DMing a game, or you're going to sit down to DM a game, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Like what, because it should be fun for you too. So what do you get out of that experience, and how can you replicate or like draw the most of whatever that thing is out of your experience DMing, while still making the game like enjoyable to your table, right? So I think that's where it comes down to is that everyone should remember that you're playing too. It should be a game. It's a game.
Yeah.
So figure out what aspect of it, in the same way that players can sit down and be like, well, I like rolling attacks and feeling like I vanquished enemies, or I like duping citizens with cool persuasion rolls or sleight of hands, or I like sneaking around and like feeling stealthy and untouchable and like scouting stuff and stealing stuff, or I like casting magic and feeling magic. Figure out what that translations of those skills or feelings are into your DMing style, and know that you're playing too. Like it's as important to make sure that you're making the game fun for you as it is that you're making it fun for your table.
Yeah.
I guess that's really the only way to come down to it. And that's going to be different for literally everyone.
Yeah. I agree. Great. I guess final thought time.
Yeah, you got one?
Phrase of the day.
Bonus phrase of the day?
Bonus phrase of the day is it's this. A murder hobo sees a game, and they see an end goal, and that's just a body on the ground. But a true player sees a game, and they see something as simple as buying an apple, and both of those can be equally fun, and one's a lot less messy. That's it.
It was like a parable.
Yeah.